Okay, video number 3 in this series. So now what I'm starting to do, I'm working the palm area and the thumb, and now I have some deep mid-tones, but I have this really dark reflection. So once again, starting with the darkest shape, and this time I'm choosing to ink the edges after I do the fill of the shape. Like I say, you can do this either way. And I can even freehand this. I do now. Interesting thing here, I find this a little busy. I think that could be a thumbnail, but frankly, I think it's just a reflection coming off the other part of the body here. I would simplify this, and you can see I've already done so. I actually made this a nice clean sweep. This dark reflection, just carried it right down. And this would be a good example of what I talk about when I say simplify, streamline, but don't eliminate critical detail. You know, there are areas where you do want exquisite detail to happen for authenticity and also to make a great render. I just prefer to organize that detail to make it visually better to look at, or aesthetically pleasing, I guess you'd say, but also to make the object read better. So this is a tricky area. I'm not going to put the 90% right in here. I have a break here, which actually is not happening in my reference. So what I'm going to do, a little correction there, I'm going to just pull that shape up and along and continue it. And it appears to me that it kind of tapers off right there. And this shape actually goes something like that. Another example of, I don't stop the drawing process when I put the pencil away and start to render. All my illustration work, I am drawing right to the very end. I'm checking my math, so to speak, making sure things are right, because there's a big difference between this drawing and tones dropped in. Things look different, and sometimes I have to respond. Sometimes I see things like that in my reference that I wasn't paying attention to when I did the pencil drawing. And like I say, reflections are secondary in a drawing. Main thing is to get the shapes down. When I indicate reflectivity to a client, it's more important on something where the subject is high reflectivity. Otherwise, it's very secondary. I'm just doing a little shading to show them what my plans are. And what I want them to make sure they understand is that I've drawn the object correctly, that I'm showing them the angle, where the light source is coming from. So get up here, and now we have this example of complexity. And I'll just kind of wing it here. It's what I do. I'm actually creating my own shapes, but they mimic what you see in the reference, but they're simpler. So I bring this shape down. That's what this drawing was for. And it's a broken shape, so I'm not just going to fill that whole shape in. Even though I kind of just created a fill shape indication in my pencil drawing, like I say, I continue to draw as I render. But I'm just breaking that up, and now I'm going to repeat that shape and put a gap in between. Let it join right there. So this is the tiny detail stuff. This is that little exquisite detail you want to start to put in your renders. But you think about it. I think about everything I do. Everything in my render, in my illustration, should be like a little gem to look at. So you could take a cropping tool and just look at that little area. It should be pleasing. It should look like it's well thought out. You don't get lazy on a render. You don't say, okay, this is just a bunch of detail. I'll just do this and that and we'll call it done. Now, you actually want to be a designer and a draftsman all the way through the process. And in fact, that is exactly how I separate the illustrators I really respect and admire and imitate from the ones I don't. Is that they show that time and attention to detail. So right here, I'm checking my math again. This outer shape I drew, it's actually out here. The chrome is very light against the light background, and I wasn't deceived. The shape, the outer shape, and I'll just kind of draw it here. The outer shape goes more like that. So I'm not going to put a line there. I'm going to put it right here. And then I'm going to look at my reference. I've always got one eye on the reference and one on my drawing, my rendering. And I'm just going to stop this shape there. And then on the other side, I'm going to bring up the other side of the shape, and there's a bright highlight right there. So all this detail is being caused by the light the photographer set up in the shade, the screen he put around it, and the black foam core he put behind it. And from this point on, I could get inventive inside this shape. Say, well, I could leave it as a solid shape, but let's have a little fun with this. Let's actually plan a gray tone in the middle of it. And so I'll just leave that like that. Okay. So I'm going to stop with the inking right there, and we'll switch back to tone. And now we want to get into deeper tones. We will use that 10 again. But now it's going to be 20, 30, and 40. And what I'm going to do is start with a 20. And you notice I have a soft blend here. So here we go. And I stop. This is just like the chrome faucet. I have a blend coming off of a dark shape. I stop it, and I'm actually going to let that be a slightly hard edge there. I kind of like the way that looks for the moment. I'll go with it. I can always soften it and blend it out later. And I'm just taking the 20, and I'm going to continue, and I should have a white highlight right there. I've got it indicated right about there, so I'm just checking myself. This is all mid-tones in here. And this line up here is this shape, the snake-like shape at the top. I'm going to go right up to that edge. And now I'm actually going to fill some of these shapes. White highlight right there. If you do make a mistake and you accidentally fill a white highlight, do not despair. You can go in with a touch of white pencil, but our real tool for that is actually white paint. That's what that tube of white paint on the supply list was for. Okay, so now I put down the 20. And I'm going to go to 40. We'll make the jump. I don't feel the need to use 30, the in-between tone, so I'm just going to go right to a 40. Let's get this blend into darkness accomplished. This is where you start to get that liquid quality, these rich, deep tone shifts. And again, I'm just one eye on the reference, one eye on my render. Right here, I'm going to stop here. So here I am again, just kind of feathering that off. And now I'm actually going to downshift one more tone. What shall I use? Let's use a 70. And the idea here is to almost bury that edge on that shape, till it virtually disappears, and that's exactly what I see in my reference. Right here, this shape tends to cross over, and you notice I'm deviating from the reference. I'm not worried about that, in part because I'm doing a demo, and so it's not like I'm doing this for a client, and the client has to see exactly what I drew. But frankly, I do make changes on pieces while I'm rendering to get a better result, because I make editorial decisions as I'm going. And really what I'm after, the crucial thing, is the effect. So right here, I'm back to my 20. And I've got to accomplish a more gentle transition out. So look what I'm doing. I'm just, again, lifting the marker out into that light area. So I didn't start at the highlight. I started inside near the core shadow, right? Just like on the objects. And I blend out across. And I could leave it right there and let it dry and just move on to the next area. So I have, now you look at the contrast between this and this. This was starting to look like chrome. That's definitely starting to look like chrome. Hard edge, extreme contrast, black, white. Heavy contrast again, but soft transition, then another hard edge. And this is the sequence you see in chrome a lot. So I'm going to actually go into another area, which is up here. This palm area is kind of a challenge, right? Here you have, like Jesse's face, you have an undulation in the surface. But unlike Jesse's face, it's a more dramatic tone shift, much more dramatic. Here the darkest tone is essentially black and the lightest tone is white. How do you get across all those tones and maintain the structure that you need? So what I do, I led with 30 there. So I'm going to come back with 10 to soften that edge. Just to show you, you can fix things. So I put a little edge there, but you see the paper was wet, so it's softening for me. Down here, I just following my reference. It doesn't touch the edge of the fingers. I got kind of a bright-ish area there. The transition gets faster over here, so I'm not going to blend out as much. And look at that. I get that palm facing the other way. I got this kind of bright, soft edge tone area ending with a bright, sharp highlight there and there. Now, working it from the other direction. Come back in. At this point, I'm going to shape this dark reflection. What is really cool about rendering is that after a while, if you can learn to be comfortable with making mistakes, and as I say, all my work is a series of mistakes. A little too far, a little too little, but if you get comfortable with the fact that you're always making small mistakes, that's just part of the process of making a piece of art, you relax, and then if you know that you can fix anything, especially small mistakes, it really takes a lot of the stress off of your rendering, because you're not kind of tight and afraid to take chances as you go, because I can go back in there and reintroduce a tone. So example being, I have a tone. Let's see if I have my white pencil here. I do. White, and we have about let's bring it over here. 20% gray. Take the white. So I've got some soft, gentle tones in here. I like to bring some of that back. Instead of freaking out saying, oh, I missed it, let's just kind of show you how to use that white pencil in chrome, light touch. Like I say, don't overuse white pencil or color pencil, period, on a chrome surface. Drop in that shape. Now take a 20. Smooth it out, blend it in, get rid of the texture. That's just the paper texture. Get it smooth, and amazingly, it looks like that's the way it was all along. Man, you didn't make a mistake, right? How did you do that perfect job on that render? Well, I'll tell you, I actually screwed it up and fixed that area. That's what I did. And then I darken on the edge of it. I can actually clean up the edge, intensify the darkness. And believe it or not, this render would go on. If I was doing a finished render, I would be going on for about an hour, working all these areas and refining and repeating everything you see me doing. Like right here, I'm going to brighten this up. Not actually happening in the reference, but I'm just having a little fun with this. I'm going to put another spot of slightly brighter light over here, and I'm going to feather it the other way. And then again, just kind of step and repeat. Take either the blender or a 10 or a 20 and just feather that, and I get a little bit more expressiveness to that gentle shape. And the cool thing is, when you get near completion, you may want to see, like you do here, some really sharp dark shapes in there. You can take your ink pen and you can actually ink in just a touch of some really sharp edge shapes. So yeah, you can use all three media together like that to create that kind of finished quality.